For the longest time, I believed you needed me more than I needed you. I carried that belief so confidently that I never stopped to question it. I thought your love would always find its way back to me no matter what happened. I thought your loyalty was something permanent. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was. The truth is that I depended on your presence far more than I ever allowed myself to admit. You became such a natural part of my life that I stopped noticing your value. Your messages, your support, your patience, and your understanding felt normal because they were always there. I never imagined a day when those things would disappear. Instead of appreciating them, I treated them like guarantees. I acted as though I had unlimited chances to make things right, never realizing that every person eventually reaches a point where they can no longer carry disappointment. I remember the confidence I had whenever problems appeared between us. Deep down, I assumed you would stay. No matter how distant I became or how little effort I gave, I believed your love would overcome it. What I didn't understand was that even the strongest love needs care. Even the most loyal heart can become exhausted. I confused your strength with permanence, and that mistake cost me more than I ever expected. The painful part is that you never demanded much from me. You weren't asking for perfection. You weren't asking me to become someone completely different. You only wanted to feel valued and understood. Looking back now, I can see how reasonable your needs were. Yet I treated them like burdens instead of opportunities. I failed to recognize that the things you were asking for were the very things that keep a connection alive. Over time, I noticed changes in you, but I misunderstood them completely. I thought you were becoming distant because you cared less. I thought your silence meant you were pulling away. What I understand now is that silence often comes after someone has repeated the same pain too many times. You weren't giving up without reason. You were becoming tired of carrying emotions that I refused to acknowledge. I wish I could tell you that I recognized the problem early, but I didn't. I kept believing there would always be another chance, another conversation, another day to show you what you meant to me. I lived as though time was unlimited. I never considered that one day you might stop waiting. I never considered that one day you would choose peace over continuing to fight for something that wasn't changing. The moment I truly felt your absence, everything became clearer. Suddenly, I noticed all the ways your love had shaped my life. The comfort you brought, the stability you created, the understanding you offered without asking for anything in return. Things I barely acknowledged before became impossible to ignore. It was like losing light and only then realizing how much darkness had been kept away by its presence. What hurts most is knowing that you tried. You gave me opportunities to understand. You communicated your feelings more times than I can count. You stayed through situations that would have made most people leave. You believed in us long after the evidence suggested you shouldn't. And instead of appreciating your effort, I relied on it. I expected it. I treated it as something that would always be available whenever I needed it. Now I understand that love should never be approached that way. Love isn't proven by how much someone is willing to endure. Love isn't measured by how long someone can survive disappointment. Real love requires appreciation. It requires attention. It requires effort from both sides. These are lessons I learned only after experiencing the consequences of ignoring them. There are memories I replay constantly now. Conversations where I could have listened more carefully. Moments where I could have shown more gratitude. Situations where a little humility might have changed everything. The difficult thing about hindsight is that it shows every missed opportunity with perfect clarity. It reveals exactly where things could have been different if only we had been wiser at the time. I don't blame you for leaving. In fact, the more I reflect on everything, the more I understand why you had to. There comes a point where protecting your heart becomes necessary. There comes a point where staying hurts more than leaving. I couldn't see that reality when it was happening, but I can see it now. And understanding it doesn't make the loss easier. It only makes it more real. If I could tell you one thing today, it would be this. I was wrong. I was wrong about who needed whom. I was wrong to assume your love would always remain available regardless of my actions. And I was wrong to believe I could continue taking your presence for granted without consequences. Losing you forced me to confront truths that comfort never would have revealed. The irony is that I didn't fully understand your value until I had to imagine life without it. That's when everything changed. That's when I realized how much strength, peace, and warmth your love brought into my world. By then, the lesson had already arrived. And like many lessons that matter most, it arrived later than I wish it had. Today, I carry that understanding with me every day, not because I enjoy the regret, but because it reminds me of what was real. It reminds me that some people enter our lives and leave a mark that never completely fades. And it reminds me that the greatest mistake I ever made was believing you needed me more than I needed you.